In terms of hiring, it's probably three to four large steps. The first thing that we kind of teach and preach, and this is in module 5, in case anyone's keen to view it afterwards, is the job ad itself, of course. Now, if you can hire from internally, so you ask your team if they know anyone, that's great. You also have to have a job ad to explain that role. And I see job ads that sound great, like they sound really nice and high income and easy work, and I like to take the opposite approach and try to make the job ad sound as hard and as grueling as it can be. Like long hours, lots of work, overtime, so on and so on. Low pay, slavery, no. So the reason behind that is that if you talk about how good something can be, you start to attract people who look for that opportunity. Like, oh, here's a chance for me to earn more, to acquire something from this company, to get extra cash. As opposed to making it sound quite flat or not as good. It's like, oh, here's a place where I can grind and improve my skills and practice my craft and really be here for the long term, right? As opposed to how much can I get and earn quickly. There is a time and place for these types of job roles. Like if you have a huge problem and you need to hire a contractor or a consultant quickly, this is very helpful. Like, come in, 3 days, we'll pay you a huge amount, great. But for anyone long term, you don't want to hype up your job ad, typically. Cool. Any questions? No. Everyone agree? Not agree? Cool. You don't have to agree, just, yeah, all good, cool. From there, the application process is typically next. The app process or the application page. And here, assuming you've tried to make the role sound as plain and as grey as you can, you usually don't have to screen for skills, right? Because if someone has the skills, they're probably going to apply for this anyway. If someone does not have the skills, they're not going to apply for like a very hard role, you know? So we can assume that the skills are there in some sense. I do still suggest doing a quick skills screen, and I'll talk about that in the very next step. The other thing that I found really helpful is, is having some questions that tell you about them, you know, which is why I brought up Tom to sort of share that. For us, if you look on our job hiring page, we asked the question, if you could be a Avenger, who would you choose and be? And there's only 2 answers that we'll accept, which is hilarious. And it's always worked. Like people who have chosen the correct answer have always been a really good hire. So there is something about that cultural question that you could ask, if it be, you know, upload like a meme or so on and so on. Having some sort of screen for who they are is really helpful. I do always suggest a Myers-Briggs as well for all roles. I also suggest a video application for all roles. Application. The reason for this is if you have someone try to type something out to impress you, it's pretty easy because they've got uncapped time. They can think about it, they can change it, they can proof it. if you get them on camera and you even tell them it has to be at least 5 minutes, 29 seconds.
What's with that?
Well, if we just ask for a video application, they could film one that's 20 seconds long, right? And anyone can act for 20 seconds, even for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. 5 minutes, a little bit harder to act. 29 seconds is just to throw them off and just to ensure that they can follow a process, you know, like if it's 5 minutes and 28 seconds, you know, you didn't quite read it properly, right? You know, it has to be at least 5 minutes and 29 seconds as well. The reason for this is you can learn a lot from how someone speaks and thinks about their phrases and words. I've seen a lot of people come through to us who have had great applications in the first 2 to 3 minutes, and then the ums come out and the ahs, and oh, actually, I meant to say this, and it's just a whole different personality. So, and then you have people who claim to have all these skills and they're so great and you know they're so excited to come and join us, and they decide not to upload this, and you're like, oh, okay, well, won't ever see you again, kind of thing, right? I would make this optional but required in the sense that they have to upload it, and you do communicate that on the job application screen, but it's not required. So if they hit send, it will send it off anyway, right? So you want people to have the choice to upload it, and if they do not upload it, then you don't have to talk to them, kind of thing. And then there's a series of questions you can ask depending on the role, right? I find the more questions you can ask that you feel like you should not be asking, the more truth you get out of this, right? So for example, if we're hiring for a sales role, we will usually ask to see their income for the last 3 months, right? We'll ask to see their commission sheets, right? And these are quite personal things. Like, it feels quite strange to ask that in a job application, but it tells us a lot. Like, are they open and being transparent? How much have they earned? How much have they spent, and how and why, right? Is it? Really?
You can't ask them if they're married, if they have kids. You can't ask them anything. There's nothing else.
Okay. Okay.
But you definitely can't ask that.
Is that if you're hiring in California?
Yeah.
So if you're hiring out of California and the company's in California, how does that work?
I'm still not fine with
Okay. Well, that's for a sales role anyway.
it.
So,
Any position.
oh, so you can't ask any questions?
No. I'm serious.
Really?
Yeah.
For, got it.
In Finland, it's like pregnancy and those
Yeah,
kinds
so
of stuff.
that's like just like
Yeah.
income. Both of those are hard no, but like even like, yeah, are you married?
That's
Literally
wild.
Can't even ask where they live.
Can you ask that on the interview?
Oh yeah, I have ways around it.
Yeah,
for
cool.
sure,
Okay.
But
You
like,
can't even ask them if they have a way to get to work.
yeah, like our job needs a car.
Got it.
You literally have to have a car.
Yeah. So you should have them upload a recording of them in their car.
Driving.
Yeah.
Very safe.
Yeah. Parking their car, right? Sitting in their
It
car.
would be discrimination if you're making them drive without a license.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers.
Is that for all employees? Like, is that for contractors as well?
No, because there's like some split there.
Yeah. So the other thing that I really,
But there's a million rules to be a contractor.
yeah, on the contractors side,
No.
on
the state
the company side,
From the state.
got it.
You can control their schedule.
And
Yes. Yep.
There's like, no, but that's like the most basic. There's like literally 50.
Yep.
It's like, it's weird.
So for us, we have a team of, I want to say 11 total, and everyone is a contractor. I prefer that a lot more for tax reasons, for cash flow reasons, and it puts you in a position where you can't rely on any single person because they can come and go. So it forces you to create your process so that anyone can use that, right, as well. So assuming you're not in California, right, feel free to ask questions that are a little bit taboo in some sense, just to get a sense of who they are, and yeah, just ensure that that's someone you want on your team, of course. And then for us, as I said before, right, our general questions, is which like superhero, like Avenger would you choose? And we have all of them. We have there's about 43 of them. I don't even know. 41 of them are the wrong answer, right? So he chose the correct answer, so that's good.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. So
The Avengers thing.
yeah, so in regards to the Avenger thing, how people see film and TV is a bit of like, they enjoy it, of course, right? They sit down, they enjoy it, but if they enjoy a certain character, there's always some traits that they see in that character in themselves, or that they would aim to have, right? So if someone selects, they would like to be, what's a Avenger name? Anyone?
Tony Stark.
Who?
Iron
Oh, Tony Stark, right? So that would be like Iron Man, right? Iron Man. So if they, select that, it tells you that this character has traits that either align to them or that they are trying to achieve, because they are trying to become somewhat of like an Iron Man. So that's the reasoning behind that, right? And each of the superheroes have their own challenges and traits and behaviors. So it kind of gives us an indirect read of who they are and who they see themselves as.
I like that.
Yeah, there's 41 wrong answers.
I like that.
So what's the right answer?
I'm not telling, because then everyone would be like, oh, we'll just click this answer.
Yeah.
Nope.
Iron Man.
No. But yeah, like you can kind of apply that to taste in music or books or films or places they travel to, right? People's choices tell you a lot about them.
But the two right, sorry.
It's all right.
But the two right answers are the right answers for you and
For-
your business.
Yes, correct.
Like my 2 or 3 answers might be different than your 2 or 3 answers because I'm looking for something different.
Exactly. And for each of our roles, this changes.
Yes,
Yeah. So it's not
yes.
company-wide. It is role. Yeah, it's sort of
Role specific.
correct.
Okay.
No, you sure? Come on, sharing this character. Yep. Let's hear it.
No, it's just fun because I'm riffing on that. I'm like, so say you wanted somebody super analytical or who likes to go into process and develop, so then you're going to go with somebody like Iron Man's on the board. But say you wanted somebody who was super loyal and valued honor and blah, 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 you might go with Captain America.
Now you're getting it.
Right? So like that's really cool.
Yep. Yep.
So depending on what you're hoping for in that person, you would, it's a good one. I mean, have you ever had people be like, I don't know Avengers, and then do you just delete them? Yeah.
We
Like,
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
That's the wrong fit.
Yeah. Immediately, like. Yeah.
Wow.
So we got I'm pretty sure it's like 43. It could be. It's a lot, and there's all the old school ones from like the 60s, the 70s, like all of them. I don't even know half of them. And then it's like we only need 2 answers, and it's not a perfect screen. Like,
No, of course not.
but it gives you something to track against, because if you have this right and you have the Myers-Briggs, you have a good recording and you have the application, you can start to correlate who this individual is.
Right. Do you find this screen, how does it translate over gender? Like, do women still choose the
Yeah,
like-
actually, like our last hire, December last year, was a older female, and she chose the correct answer. I was like, amazing.
girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
She was great.
That was all.
So I just had a question about the application of the Myers-Briggs, right? Like I get taking the exam and you get your letters and cool, you can talk about that and everything, but is there any sort of rubric anywhere that explains like particular kind of generalized jobs and an appropriate Myers-Briggs match to that?
Yep.
It's kind of like universal?
Yep.
Or
So-
is it specific?
Yeah, so it's not perfect per se, but assuming that you have created the process, this means that the task has to have been completed previously, either from you or from a previous team member. If it's from you per se, and you've created that process, and you're now hiring someone new to join your team to operate that process, you should be hoping that your Myers-Briggs is close to theirs. Not the exact, but is close to theirs, because they will be doing the process that you used to be doing. Another example is if you have someone on your team, like a cleaner or a customer service person, and you're trying to expand that team, I would have your current team complete his test, assuming that you want more of those people, right? Yeah. Cool. So there are rules for this. Like there are certain types are a lot more prone to certain roles. That's helpful if you haven't hired for that role before. If you have a team in that role already, I would just give your team that test to then try to find more people like them, and or for your own test as well. Cool. Any other questions on this so far? Yep.
Actually, I think that I know what character Sergey chose from that. Do you want to know?
Black Widow. No.
I think it was Jack Sparrow.
Jack Sparrow is like an Avenger? What are you talking about? Jack Sparrow is like a really good one though.
The way I run on trails is pretty accurate.
You know what would be interesting is to have characters who aren't a actual like Avenger in there, like Jack Sparrow. And sorry, Jack Sparrow here. Nope. Wrong answer. Cool. Any other questions about Jack Sparrow or this? No? Cool. Awesome. So, job ad, great. Application process, great. I think this is really helpful. Again, communication skills solves almost all problems in terms of a team member having the communication skills to share that problem and to accept the training or comments or feedback right. That's really important, and having this really screens that as well. The other thing, which I think is quite helpful, is assuming that you are hiring for a process that you've already created and they've gone through this, the last step per se is, can they use the process? So, just like Tom explained before, a good interview is having them complete a task. The reason for that is you're hiring them for a task. So let's see if they can complete a task. A lot of the time, interviews are just coffee and just talk, and the person interviewing is asking questions that they hope the individual would respond to correctly, right? So it's not optimized for truth or for them using that process. So if you can, of course, try to have the person that you are trying to hire complete a task for you, if that be 10 minutes or half an hour, right? I think we've had the longest task we've had in our company was about 2 hours, which is quite long for a online role. And if you have like 10 people apply and come through, you've got about 20 hours of like free team time, which is nice. And some people kind of frown at that in terms of if they've come through this whole process and they've uploaded that and they've answered everything, and the last kind of step before the actual interview is to complete a quick job, they frown at it, and that tells us that, you know, they're not the right person for the job. Like, if this is a job that you want and you're good at and you enjoy as you sort of, you know, claim through all of this, and you can't complete a half an hour job or even a 10-minute job, then you're not the right hire for us.
Okay, so all this, and you haven't put time into the, at what point do you put time into the person? I realize you look at the stuff, but you haven't met them yet?
I have through the recording,
video,
yeah.
yes. But then you've met them. Have they met you yet?
No, I know all about them. They
You
don't
know all about them, and
me
they haven't
yet.
even seen you yet.
Correct.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Okay, that's what I. So they do the 2 hours.
Or half an hour or 10
Half
minutes,
hour,
right?
yes. And if they can complete it and you're still happy, then we'll move on to the one-on-one interview.
Yep.
Love it.
Now, in regards to this, you can set up, there's a few, oh, sorry, Ken had a question too.
It's slide time, so maybe
Cool.
finish with it.
Okay. So there's a few ways to set this up. The first is you can set up a real task. The problem with this is that if it goes wrong, it might hurt your business. So just be careful about that. And it requires you to set it up each time for each new person who is coming through. So for us, we copy a real task and we use pretty much our demo information, but it looks real, right? If that be doing some quick accounting, replying to emails, trying to create some integration, right? It needs to look real. And again, if they're not interested in completing that task, again, half an hour, 10 minutes, 2 hours, then it sort of tells you a lot about them. And we're trying to screen for two things per se. The first is their skill set. Can they actually apply that skill set to this process? The next, which is probably arguably even more important, is can they use a process? Because ideally, the process teaches and trains the skill set, regardless of if they have it or not, hopefully. So can they use a process? Can they read it from start to end? Can they interpret it? Can they read it through properly to actually use that process?
A version of what Jamie said that worked for us when hiring technical people like programmers. We have a subset of the project that they're gonna be working on. So I pay for an actual coding test, a real-time coding test. So usually I would have at least five people, and I would pay for them for 30 minutes of their time. And I watch them code in TeamViewer. And I don't give them the requirements right away. I give them, the clock starts now. Here are the requirements. And it's like a compressed version of what they will be working on. And then I tell them, I don't expect you to finish this, but I'm going to be watching. Because I want to know, do they really have the skills that they claim? Because in 80% of cases, we've gone through so many real-time tests, it's all BS. They would say they know this, but then once they get into the task, they don't even have the tools installed, or they would have to Google something. You can tell if they have mastery over what they're claiming that they have, right? You can see how creative they are. You can see how second nature the task is for them. So it's a great way, and because it's paid, because it's a paid interview, a paid test, you know, it's they don't have any problems with it if they don't get the job. But it really, 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 lets us filter the BS ones. There's so many of them. There's so many of them, and also it allows us to see if they're really the ones doing the job. Because believe it or not, in about half the cases, in some countries, it's actually the one you're interviewing is not actually the one who's gonna do the job. Really,
that is
really,
wild.
I've got it so many times. Like they're coding, I can see their screen moving, and then I chat them, I distract them, and they're able to respond. Like, how are you able to answer?
Coding and typing, right?
And they would say, I have a phone with me and my laptop. Then I would, distract them again, and then I would notice some things like the time zone and their screen is off. So many things, and I've caught so many of this. Yeah. Especially when you're hiring from these certain countries that have, it's cheaper, but so much BS. But
Yeah.
also you will find really good people this way.
That reminds me of a story from we were hiring a new admin person, I think last April, and the role required nothing too complex, just, we sort of used the same hiring process, all good. And then the role was primarily using Google Sheets. So we had them complete a task using Google Sheets. In that, we actually had them complete the task on Zoom in front of us. The thing, I saw this individual who looked and sounded really good. They come on to Zoom, they go, yep, here's your task. I will just put myself on mute. Go ahead and complete the task. They go to Chrome. They go to Google. They search Firefox. They download Firefox. They go to Google. They search Google Docs. They then click on Google Sheets. And I'm like, that's the most inefficient route to get to Google Sheets. So they had the skill. They knew what they were trying to do. But their process to get to that task took an extra 8 minutes. And I'm like, that's inefficient. Like, great skill, smart, communicated well, but how they used the tool, the computer, was just too slow. And then the next person I screened went straight to Google Sheets. I'm like, already miles better. We already saved like 8 minutes, great. So there is something to be said about seeing them complete that task in front of you if the role is attached to a contract and the time they spent charges you more, and or if there's some sort of KPI attached to how long that task takes. The other thing that I like to do sometimes with more so complex admin roles or complex product roles is have a task that can't be solved. So you create a task or some problem scenario that can't be solved. They can't complete the sheet, they can't upload the thing, they can't send an email. There's some problem that cannot be solved. Now, this isn't just to like feel evil and powerful.
A little bit.
I'm like, Sergey, here's your task. Oh, you can't finish it.
Everybody else finished it.
yeah, right?
Everybody else finished it.
So the reason behind that is I want to see their problem-solving skills. So we connect that to here. I'm keen to see how their problem skills or problem solving skills. I'm keen to see their reporting skills to me. Like, do they just complain? Do they tell me they've tried these 8 things and they still can't get the task to work? And their truthfulness, in some sense, because I've had a few people who have said, yep, it's all done. And I'm like, it's not done. That task can't be solved. And then I check it and it's not solved. I was like, oh, okay, so there's an issue with truth here and transparency, right? So you want someone, if you decide to take this route of having a task that can't be solved, you want to see them try different approaches. Yes. You want to see how they think about that problem. Do they go head on? Do they look upstream? Do they try to solve the problem after it has already occurred, right? Do they try to change the scenario in the place that that problem is inside, right? How sort of are they approaching that problem? Do they keep track of their changes and of their thought process, so that they can tell you, hey Jamie, I've sort of tried this task. Here are the 12 things I tried and they all didn't work. I did this to that, it didn't work, this to that, no, right? Are they good at keeping notes, sending those to me? And then are they truthful? Like, had they gone, yep, I've tried, I can't do it, I'm so sorry, can you show me how? It's like, that is someone I want on my team. Thoughts, comments, questions?
Another.
Talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah.
That's a good one, by the way. That's a really good one. Having the impossible problem. Another tell that that I check when I hire technical people, how often they use their mouse or their trackpad. Because usually the really good ones know all the keyboard shortcuts. They just that's how you can tell they're pros.
That's very smart.
Yeah, yeah. They don't switch as much. They know all the keyboard shortcuts.
I will say as well, if I'm hiring someone on a simple admin role, I will prefer to see them use 2 screens rather than a single screen, right? So there are some preferences in there in terms of the job role and the tools they have at hand and the skills and communication and truthfulness, right? All of this is designed to kind of screen that. And assuming they get through all of that, which, to be honest, it's not actually that hard. Like, you just got to be truthful and you have to be the right hire. Like, it's not hard to get through all of this. It just requires some time and patience, which I think are very much undervalued. Do you want to pass that to Tanner, just behind you?
And then you just do all this through Upwork, right? If I remember right?
In terms of the place that we hire from,
The whole process, or where do you break it up? Do you just do the ad and then you send them a different application
it
process?
depends on the role. So we sometimes hire from Upwork, sometimes from groups, sometimes from friends, right? So, but usually, where it starts on our own platform is from about here onwards. So the job ad, if we are hiring on Upwork, this would be the only thing on that platform.
Oh, okay. And then you take them to your application process.
Correct.
I have another hack. So, especially in Upwork, so many people just apply blindly. You must have seen this, right? A lot of them don't really read through the job ad. So I put at the very end of the job ad, start your application with, let's say, if I'm hiring for a programmer, start your application with the hex equivalent of this binary number.
Mm-hmm.
And it's surprisingly, more than 90% of them don't even do that. So either they don't know, or in most cases they don't read. Because in Upwork, it's very, very easy for them to just apply. It's very easy. So you just throw them off, have a question that they would need to put the answer of just one word at the very first part of their application. It's very easy to weed out the ones who are not reading.
Has anyone heard about the brown M&M's story? No. Yeah. So there used to be a band, I forgot which group it was. I think it was like Van Halen, I think. And they were on tour a lot. And they had a huge set, lights, flames, everything. So they had a big handbook that they would send to each stage. You know, you need to set up these lights, these speakers, these flames. You need to make sure it can hold a certain amount of like weight. You need to make sure the crowd is safe, all this stuff. It was a handbook that was designed to make sure the show went off without any problems. Quite thick. I think it was like 300 or 400 pages. It was huge. And not at the end, but halfway in there was one step that said, you know, step number 422. We want a bowl of brown M&Ms. Only brown. On the stage when we arrive. You can't purchase only brown at that time. You have to get them one by one. And to them, it was a Q sheets check. If they got to that stage and it's not on there, they know that that team hasn't read the full handbook. Because it's not at the end, it's halfway through hidden in there. And then I think they would usually cancel that show or have a new team come through and recheck everything. Because they can't afford for that show to explode in flames or for the whole stage to collapse, right? So that's right on that point. Yes. Which brings me to the interview. One thing that I like to do at the interview, well, there's a few things, but one question is I have them try to recall the keyword that was in the job ad. So somewhere in the job ad, I have keyword equals da-da-da-da, right? I don't tell them that they have to recall that or write it down. I'm just curious to see if they were able to recall that or maybe have seen that keyword. Because it tells you that they've read the full job ad, which is important and helpful. And it kind of acts like this in some sense too, which is exactly what you were saying. Like, yeah. And then in the interview, assuming that the skills have been checked, you check their personality, they are not a Jack Sparrow, right? They've gone through the process, they've completed a task that can be solved or that can't be solved, up to you. Then really the interview is just cross-checking everything, like seeing who they are, their hopes, their dreams, their desires, frustrations, how come they chose your company, right? And you're trying to not hype them up, essentially. Like, I've seen interviews occur whereby the person who is hosting the interview is really excited to talk to this person applying. And that gives you an incorrect read, essentially, I think. Because the other person thinks they have the job already and they're really inflated, right? You want to see how someone operates at their normal baseline. And hopefully they have a baseline, right? So seeing that in the interview is really helpful. And the questions you ask determine the answers that you will get, which sounds quite obvious. However, really common flaw that I see with people who conduct interviews is they change the questions without even trying. For example, you could ask, as a general question, which school did you go to? and that would give you a certain response. If you change that to, I see you went to Harvard, that's going to still give you the answer of what school, but a very different response. And what ends up happening is if you change the questioning across 8, 10, 12 interviews, you can't now correlate everyone evenly, because how you ask the question will determine the answer you get. Right? So you need to ask the question in the exact same phrasing across every single person. And try to avoid small talk as well, essentially. Because you're trying to get a very clean read that you can compare to everyone else, right? For example, if you are hiring a sales person, you could ask, again, what was your monthly commissions at your previous job role? Now, you could already have that answer from here, right? But it's always good just to ask that again, just to cross-check. However, you could also ask, were you the top earner at your previous role? Same kind of question, but that would give you two very different answers. His answer would be like either would bring up a excuse or a complaint, or it would inflate their ego if they were, as opposed to this one give you a very dry, tangible answer. So how you ask questions determine the answers. And the amount of large companies I see that free flow interviews is very disturbing. And then they end up hiring the wrong people again and again, and they're not sure why. Thoughts, comments? Cool.
That's great psychological stuff.
Yes.
I love it. Yes. I mean, the whole M&M, everything. I like that.
Mm-hmm. So all of this is in our program, module 5, of course, but it's always good just to go through it here. Cool. Any other questions, Tanner? Yeah. You can share it, and then I might answer afterwards. But yeah,
Okay.
share it.
I've just noticed you've done a lot with like, the processes and that. But I'm curious because like there's that CEO checklist that you go through, and I'm curious where in all of this process do you start doing that, and maybe like if you could walk through that more, because I was just seeing like those are important things to know as you're going through. Like you almost have to have some of those things done before, maybe you hire a person. So I'm just kind of curious to see when you introduce that checklist and how you go through and how it might relate to some of the other things we've talked about.
The checklist for.
Is like step 1 is look at your cash flow. Step 2 was your.
Oh, for the CEO checklist.
Yeah, the
Got it.
management one. Because like I think these are really good of like, hey, how to replace yourself and everything. But at some point you're also still in the business. So like every day, what's that daily? This is what I need. To
Yeah,
do.
sure.
I think that would be really helpful. And it doesn't have to be now, but it was just
No,
something that came.
yep.
Because like I think you have to, like I said, you have to almost have some of that stuff done before you hire. But at what point and where do you start this, or do you go through only steps 1 through 6, or like, hey, having your MQLs, your KPIs is a prerequisite before starting your. Like I just feel like there's, based on that checklist, that also gives a lot of like almost a branch of where you should go next in the Dream Team Intensive.
Cool. Yep, I'll answer that maybe tomorrow. But yeah, I think we'll go for that one tomorrow or later today as well. Okay? Cool. So that's the application hiring process, right? That's all clear? Cool. I want to share one more little trick.
Sorry, 114.
course. You've got the microphone. Yep.
So like how? Sorry.
It's okay.
Like how long does it take for you? How long do you block out in your calendar when you're hiring someone?
Well, the only thing that requires higher time are the interviews. So I might do interviews 1 day a week during the whole hiring process.
How long will your hiring process usually be?
It depends. I've had scenarios that I've hired the very first person who came through. I've also had scenarios that I've hired the very last person who came through, of course, right? So I've had times where it took 3 days, which is great. Had times where it took 3 months. I think Sergey was our longest. It took about 3.5 months to like track him down, finally. So, yeah. And that's hard because you have this process that's ready to go and you have this role that needs to be filled and you have to try to not compromise. You have to like make sure you're asking the same questions, the same tonality to get the same answers, to make sure this is the right person. Because if you try to hire quickly just to fill the role, it's not going to solve that problem over the long term. And you have to end up addressing that problem, if it be a team problem or a process problem, right? Or a cultural fit. Just hiring to solve a problem quickly and then trying to rush through that is not suggested. So,
But you do learn so much. You learn so much. Like I think all my fuck ups in hiring like have been like my gold that you keep saying. Like it's literally like the best thing I ever did. While I'm in it, it feels terrible. Like it really sucks. But then you're like, you feel it. If you don't feel it, sometimes you keep making that mistake. So like when you feel it and you're like, God damn it, now I have to do this for 3 weeks. Okay, so next time, I don't want to ever be here again. You're like more dedicated to get it done. Like you feel it because you missed the baby shower. You had to work 12-hour day, whatever it is. Like you struggled. I think when people don't do that or get there, you're gonna hit it another hiccup somewhere else. Like I do like honor my struggle.
Of course,
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
So I don't know. Like I think hire whenever. Like it's kind of like people say with a baby. I'm not speaking against Jamie, but you know, they're always like, oh, until I have money, until I have time, until it's kind of the same shit. Like I just jumped in. I hired like literally 12 people, screwed it all up, learned so much, did it again, screwed it all up, and like every time it's like a little bit better. Obviously, we all wish we had Jamie when we first started this, but you know, so you're already in a better place. Yeah.
That's great.
When should you stop and make a decision? Because usually, like, you can't hold the applicants forever. You usually say, "We'll get back to you if we choose you." When or how many do you go through before you make a decision? Because sometimes you go through 4, 5, and then you're thinking, should I choose from this pool because they might find another job already? What if the next one is better?
Yeah. I think as soon as you have found the person and you're happy with the things you're seeing, do one more interview to just cross-check. That's what I've done generally. So like I would have, you know, assuming everyone comes through that whole process, right, I might have interview 1, interview 2, right, interview 3, and they're all okay. And then maybe, you know, interview 4 is really good. And because I have that contrast of at least 1 or 2, I feel confident hiring the last person. So you need some contrast. So which means if you have one person come through and they seem really good, I would still do another interview, maybe a third interview too, just so you have contrast to make sure you're not overinflating them in your own mind. Yeah. No, it's fine.
So like, if a person, they have answered like all the right answers, what you want to hear, but your intuition is like still like, no.
Yep.
Will
I've
you
had
listen
that.
to it? Yeah.
Yep. You need to find out what that reason is. Like you need to sit down and go, why do I feel uncomfortable in this? Questions to ask could be, where am I wrong? So where am I wrong in assuming this person is right, even though I feel a little bit uncomfortable? And where have I seen this before? Because usually if it's intuition, it's some combination of previous experiences. Not the exact same experience, but maybe you've seen it on a TV show and it didn't end well, or you've heard about it from a friend, or you've read about it and you go, oh, you know what? I kind of seen this application in this film, and then my friends hired someone, and then that's coming from somewhere. It's not just some random thing that's just occurred out of nowhere. Like, I think intuition is a collection of all experiences and inputs that we've seen over our life or heard. So if you have that, try to figure out where you could be wrong in assuming this person looks great, but where could you be wrong? Like, oh, well, they said they only had 2 years on the application, but I interviewed them and they said they had 2.5 years. That's a little bit weird, right? Just try to figure out where you could be wrong. Did you have a question? Oh, cool.
I will just say I'm not that logical about it. I have a strong intuition. So yeah, I could go like some questions, but if it feels wrong, I think it's gonna feel wrong.
Yeah, I would say the most profitable hires I've had, I felt really grounded and somewhat calm and numb. Like, I was not excited to hire them. I'm not unhappy about hiring them. I was like, oh, cool. Here's a new team member. Great. The times that I've been like thrilled to hire someone, never goes well. The times that I've been unhappy to hire someone, of course, never goes well. The more unresponsive I am in hiring someone, and even a little bit cautious because I'm so unresponsive, seems to go well. Cautious / attentive, I would say.
I can relate to that, what you said.
Yep.
I was just going to comment on the emotional hiring because I'm like that. And
Not emotional.
no, but intuitive, but like the feeling of like, this is right. And I follow this, I've noticed it's a really big trend that I repeat this consistently, and this is really helpful because I'll see something in someone and I'm like, I'll recognize myself in one aspect of them and I get really thrilled and I'm like, okay, I feel good about this, gut check, yeah. And then I get them, I'm like, they're everything. They're not everything. And I go through this like crash of like disillusionment, I screwed up, it's ruined, they're lazy, I can't, oh my God. And what I've found is I have to like ride that out and not just go, okay, the fall from grace has like now happened, and I have to ride that out and go, okay, reset, stop. Because I fall in love with people. I'm like, you're amazing, it's everything. And then they're gonna crash, they're gonna, in my eyes, right? And in my mind, I'm gonna feel this. And then once I let that go and go, okay, who are they really? Mm-hmm. And what do they bring? I can like get there. But so this is really helpful and it's interesting, but I have to ride that out and then go, who are they? What do they bring? What are their skills? Do I have them in the right place? And really what it's come down to is like, I have no process for them. So I'm expecting them to like run with all the things that I know and I feel, and they're just sitting there going, can you write me a list? God damn it. Right? And then they can maybe be the thing that I felt. I wasn't maybe wrong, but I didn't give them any tools. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Mine was back to yours. Is it possible, because I also do the paid on-site for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, for culture, for tons of reasons, because ours is so physical and it's been overhyped and blah, blah, blah. I ask if they can kind of like stay on. Like if anything happens, would you still like us to reach out to you? And most of the time they're like, yeah, and that person didn't work out in 3 weeks, and I reach back out and then it's a perfect fit. Back to the timeline thing. I don't know if that helps in your scenario.
I have another question if we still have time.
Yeah, of course.
So 2 questions that are very related. So what stage do you discuss about the compensation? And what if, let's say your budget is say $5,000, and then you encounter an applicant who is say 10% better than what you were expecting, but they're also expecting a higher salary.
Yeah.
When would you like hire someone who's a little bit overqualified and also a little bit more expensive, versus just hiring someone who is just barely passes and fits your budget? You know what I mean?
Yep. Assuming you're hiring to grow and you're hiring to generate profit, then there's going to be a good return on that hire regardless, right? So hiring someone who is higher skilled, who is more quality, and paying that little bit more can be helpful, assuming that they've crossed all of those checks and hurdles, right? So I'm not against that. There are times that it does make sense, but it just depends on the role. Will you earn that back off of them, right, as well? Can you instead cap that and give them a compensation at the end of each year, right, assuming they hit certain KPIs? Yeah.
At what stage do you discuss about the compensation?
Cool. So you've gone through the job ad. They've gone through the application page. Right, they've gone through like a demo task in some sense, so on and so on. I like to, in terms of the interviewing, I try to have 2 interviews, and it's not for all roles, but certainly for a more senior role, I try to have 2 interviews. The first interview is typically he talking to them and me asking questions, right, about them, their history, their dreams, goals, fears, asking about Jack Sparrow, seeing any sort of, trying to get any intel from them that I can. This usually lasts for about 45 minutes, an hour at max. And we've got a series of those questions to ask inside Module 5 as well, if need. Then, if that all goes well, I end the interview and I say, yep, we will be in contact quite soon. If the answers check out and I'm pleased in terms of the answers, I'll then schedule a second interview. And this interview, essentially, they get to ask me questions. So they'll ask about the team, the company, how long we've been around for, our product, our clients, our marketing. And then they'll eventually ask, well, how much does it pay? And I go, yeah, that's a really good question. So I always leave it to them to ask, essentially, at the end, in the second interview. So so just allow them to bring it up and be like, oh, you thought this was a paid role? Okay, that's interesting.
What happens
How
when
much
they
did you think-
ask in the first interview?
Sorry?
What happens when they ask in the first interview?
You say, really good question. Let's answer that at the end. And you get to the end. Oh, we're out of time. How about we schedule a second interview? And then you start off this interview by asking them, is there anything you're keen to ask me? And just see what comes out. Because then you also are able to tell them about your company, product, right? If they ask about that, it tells you a lot in terms of how they ask questions. Like, are they good? Are they skilled at asking smart questions? Are they asking the right questions? Do they ask instantly, how much will I get from you as a wage or commission? Or are they asking about the product, the clients, the team? And you just answer. You answer your question, you stop, just wait for the next question. And they ask, you answer, you stop, that's it. So they are pretty much trying to interview you at this point.
Do you change your offer depending on how they've done so far in the interview process?
It's a good question. I do not. I usually have that pre-designed before. So assuming that I have, again, gone through the work to write the process, I know how much this process will create, or this role will create. So I know how much I should be, so that I get a high income, hopefully, and that the company isn't going to sink as well. So.
So you don't negotiate after that point? Like if they're like, well, I actually need it, is there like a margin that you will, or is that, just psychologically, is that a bad thing to do?
Again, it depends on the role. Like, if you have the headroom and you can flex a little bit and you're really happy with how everything has gone, then you could. But I would be asking why. Like, why do they need that? Or why do they think they need that? Or deserve that? Just have them tell you why. Like, you'd be like, oh, okay, cool, you know, can you expand on why? You know, oh, you know, because I've had this much, okay, cool, yep. Just getting that insight is helpful, right? If it is because they're looking at another company who is giving them more, it's probably not someone you want because they're seeking opportunity over growth. So if you have someone try to negotiate a wage, and their reason for that is because, well, I have another job offer from this company who are going to give me more, then it tells you that they're really chasing income.
Right, so it's not about being passionate about working with you or on this specific thing, or...
Yeah, and that's okay, but,
not
the
for you.
people I hire, I want them to have an interest in this industry, in this craft and art, right? Because then they're here for the long term, like, because they actually enjoy it.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything else on this? Cool. Is that all clear?